The alien warship hovered ominously above Earth, its metallic surface gleaming under the sun's light. It was a monstrosity of technology, built by the Zarkath, known across the galaxy as the deadliest species. They were conquerors, feared by every civilization they encountered, ruthless, calculating, and unstoppable. At least that's what they believed until they faced humanity. Commander Velnak stood on the bridge of his ship, his sharp, scaled face twisted into a smug grin. His crimson eyes scanned the blue planet below. "Primitive," he scoffed. "They don't even have interstellar travel. This will be quick." His voice echoed with a confidence that filled his crew with ease. Beside him, Lieutenant Threk's tentacles twitched with anticipation. "Should we begin the orbital bombardment, Commander?" Velnak waved a clawed hand dismissively. "No need. Let's savor this. Send the drones first. Let them witness the power of the Zarkath." Thousands of metallic drones shot out from the ship, descending upon Earth like a silver storm. They tore through the skies, scanning cities, military bases, and communication hubs. The images beamed back to the warship showed humans running in terror, hiding in buildings that looked like fragile toys to the mighty Zarkath. "They scatter like insects," Threk mocked, his body vibrating with laughter. "Pathetic." Velnak leaned forward, his fangs bared. "Commence the purge." The drones unleashed beams of energy, disintegrating everything in their path. Buildings crumbled, vehicles exploded, and the ground was scorched. The Zarkath watched with pleasure, convinced that Earth was theirs within minutes. But something unexpected happened. The humans fought back. From hidden bunkers and underground bases, missiles launched, tearing through the drones. Electromagnetic pulses erupted from concealed stations, frying the invaders' circuits mid-air. In cities, human soldiers armed with makeshift devices brought down the machines using guerrilla tactics. They were fierce, coordinated, and relentless. Velnak's smugness faded as he watched the screens. Impossible. They're more organized than anticipated. Threk's tentacles curled in anxiety. "Commander, they're adapting, faster than expected." Earth's forces were crude compared to Zarkath technology, but they were effective. They combined sheer determination with ingenuity, using the environment to their advantage. They drew the drones into narrow city streets, where maneuverability was limited, then ambushed them from rooftops. They lured them into electromagnetic traps, then dismantled them to learn how they worked. "They're learning from us?" Threk's voice wavered. The idea was preposterous. No species had ever adapted so quickly to Zarkath warfare. "They're evolving mid-battle," Velnak hissed, his eyes narrowing. "But it doesn't matter. If the drones fail, we'll send the warriors." Down on Earth, Captain Maya Lee watched the skies, her face smeared with dirt and sweat. She stood amidst the ruins of what was once a bustling city, now a battlefield. "They thought we'd just roll over and die," she muttered, gripping her rifle. "They don't know what it means to be human." Beside her, Sergeant Diaz laughed, a harsh, defiant sound. "Let's teach them." Maya's communicator buzzed. "Captain, we've recovered one of the drones intact. Engineers are working on reverse engineering their tech. We might be able to turn it against them." Maya's eyes gleamed with determination. "Good. Every piece of their tech we take down is another weapon in our hands." The battle raged on, Earth's defenders fighting tooth and nail for every inch. The Zarkath's drones, once thought invincible, were falling. It was a war of attrition, and humanity was refusing to give up. On the warship, Velnak's claws dug into his throne. "This is unacceptable. Send the warriors. Let them see the true power of the Zarkath." Thousands of drop pods shot out from the warship, blazing through the atmosphere. They landed across the continents, opening to reveal hulking Zarkath soldiers, armed to the teeth and bred for combat. They marched forward, their heavy footsteps shaking the earth. Maya watched the new threat through her binoculars. Her heart sank for a moment at the sheer size and power of these creatures. But then she straightened, her jaw tightening. They want to invade our home? Then we show them what it means to fight for it. She rallied her troops, her voice echoing through the ruins. We've survived every disaster this planet has thrown at us. Floods, earthquakes, wars. We're still here, and we're not letting some alien invaders take our world. Her words ignited a fire within her soldiers. They knew fear, but they also knew resilience. They had faced extinction before and defied it every time. The Zarkath had unleashed their most powerful warriors, but they were about to learn the most dangerous truth about humanity. When backed into a corner, humans didn't just fight back. They evolved, and they were just getting started. The Zarkath warriors advanced, their massive armored bodies gleaming under Earth's sun. They moved with terrifying precision, each step synchronized, weapons ready to obliterate anything in their path. Their faces were concealed behind metallic masks, glowing red eyes scanning for targets. They were the elite, trained to conquer worlds and break civilizations. From her vantage point, Captain Maya Lee watched the alien soldiers march through the devastated streets. They were enormous, easily 8 feet tall, with exoskeletons that deflected bullets. Her heart pounded, but fear gave way to determination. "We've dealt with worse," she muttered. "We'll find a way." Her radio crackled. "Captain, they're moving fast. Our bullets aren't even scratching them." Maya tightened her grip on her rifle. "Pull back. Don't engage head-on. We need to outthink them, not outgun them." She signaled her team to retreat into the ruins, using the twisted remnants of buildings as cover. The Zarkath warriors advanced, their heavy weapons firing plasma bolts that vaporized everything they touched. Explosions rocked the streets, dust and debris clouding the air. Maya led her unit through the narrow alleys, knowing the larger aliens would have difficulty maneuvering in tight spaces. "Keep moving! Stay out of their line of fire!" From behind a crumbled wall, she watched as a group of Zarkath tried to follow, their massive frames scraping against the concrete. Their size was their strength, but also their weakness. They were too bulky for the urban terrain. Maya's eyes narrowed. "Hit them now!" Her soldiers sprang from cover, launching homemade explosives at the aliens. The blasts sent shockwaves through the narrow alley, collapsing walls onto the invaders. The Zarkath were momentarily buried under the rubble, their massive bodies struggling to free themselves. Maya's team didn't wait for them to recover. They opened fire on the exposed joints of the exoskeletons, targeting the weakest points they had observed. Sparks flew as armor cracked and circuitry shorted. One of the warriors roared, its voice a mechanical growl as it fell, its limbs twitching. Maya's radio buzzed again. "Captain, we've got engineers working on the drone tech. We think we can hack into their communications." A smile spread across Maya's face. "Do it. Let's see how they like it when we turn their own weapons against them." Meanwhile, aboard the Zarkath warship, Commander Velnak watched the battle unfold on the screens. His crimson eyes narrowed as he saw his elite warriors struggling. "How are they resisting?" he growled, his claws digging into his throne's armrests. Threk hesitated, his tentacles trembling. "They're using the terrain against us, adapting their strategies mid-battle." Velnak's face contorted with rage. "No species adapts this quickly. They're supposed to be primitives." Threk's eyes widened as one of the screens flickered, static distorting the image. "Commander, we're losing communication with the forward units." Velnak's head snapped towards the communication console. "Impossible! Our technology is unparalleled." But the screens continued to glitch. and suddenly, one by one, the images went black. Then, to Velnak's shock, the human symbol, a crude depiction of their planet, appeared on the display, rotating defiantly. A human voice echoed through the warship's speakers. "You thought you could conquer us? You underestimated humanity." Velnak's eyes blazed with fury. "They're hacking our systems?" Threk's tentacles curled in fear. "They're using our own drones to interfere with our communications, redirecting signals. I don't understand how." Velnak slammed his fist on the console. "Enough! Deploy the annihilator cannons! Wipe them out!" On the surface, Maya's communicator beeped. "Captain, we've successfully disrupted their network, but they're preparing another strike. Something big." Maya's blood ran cold. She looked up at the massive warship hovering above, its cannons glowing ominously. "They're going to level the city." Her mind raced. They needed to take out the warship's weapons before they fired, but they had no spacecraft, no way to reach the enemy ship. Then it hit her. The captured drones. She turned to her engineer, Samir, who was furiously typing on his laptop. "Can you control those drones? Make them fly?" Samir looked up, his eyes wide. I think so. But we don't have enough firepower to take out that ship." Maya's jaw clenched. "We don't need to destroy it. We just need to disable those cannons." Samir nodded, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "I can redirect the drones to target the power relays. It'll be like cutting the nerves to their guns." Maya's heart raced. "Do it, and send a few to their sensors too. Blind them." Minutes later, the captured drones roared to life, taking off in formation. They ascended rapidly, piercing the clouds as they soared towards the warship. On the bridge, Velnak's eyes widened as he saw the familiar silver drones speeding towards his ship. "What are they doing? Why are they returning?" Threk's voice trembled. "Commander, they're not ours anymore." Before Velnak could react, the drones crashed into the power relays on the warship's exterior, detonating with precision. Explosions rippled across the hull, and the lights on the annihilator cannons flickered, then died. The mighty weapons went silent. On the ground, Maya watched with satisfaction. Bullies never like a fair fight. The warship shuddered, losing stability as systems malfunctioned. Velnak roared in fury, his crimson eyes blazing. "They've crippled our ship! These humans!" Maya's communicator buzzed again. "Captain, they're disoriented. Now's our chance to push them back." She grinned. "Then let's show them what happens when you threaten Earth." The humans rallied, surging forward with renewed vigor. They fought with a ferocity born of survival and defiance, driving the Zarkath warriors back. The invaders, once seen as unstoppable, were now stumbling, disorganized, vulnerable. Maya led the charge, her voice echoing through the ruins. "They thought we were weak. Let's teach them the power of humanity." And for the first time in galactic history, the deadliest species in the galaxy felt fear. Chaos consumed the warship as alarms blared, red lights flashing across the bridge. Sparks flew from damaged consoles and smoke curled through the air. Commander Velnak stood rigid, his claws gripping the armrests of his throne as his ship trembled under the assault. The very drones they had deployed were now tearing through their systems, dismantling their supremacy piece by piece. "This is impossible," Velnak snarled, his voice echoing with fury. "How are they doing this? How are these primitives defeating us?" Lieutenant Threk's tentacles were trembling, his eyes wide with fear. "Commander, they're exploiting our own technology, turning it against us. I've never seen anything like it." Velnak's fangs gleamed as his lips curled in a snarl. "These humans are more than just primitives. They're cunning." He slammed his fist on the console, causing sparks to fly. Prepare the Vindicators. If they want to fight dirty, we'll drown them in fire. Meanwhile, on the ground, Captain Maya Lee watched the warship flicker with failing power. She saw the drones she'd sent rip through the ship's relays, sparks dancing along the hull. It was working. They were actually crippling the invincible Zarkath. A voice crackled through her communicator. "Captain, we've got them on the run. Their ground forces are retreating." Maya's eyes narrowed. "They're regrouping. This isn't over yet." She looked around at the city, once full of life, now reduced to rubble and ash. The people she had sworn to protect were hiding underground, praying for salvation. Her heart clenched. They couldn't afford to lose. Humanity had nowhere else to go. Earth was their only home. "Rally the fighters. We push forward. We're taking back our world." The humans surged with renewed determination, their ranks tightening, their weapons aimed with precision. They moved through the ruins, sweeping the streets and flushing out the remaining Zarkath soldiers. Despite the advanced armor and towering size of the invaders, the humans fought with a ferocity that left the aliens shaken. Sergeant Diaz ran up to Maya, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. "Captain, they're retreating to the landing zones. They're trying to regroup." Maya's jaw tightened. "They're setting up defensive perimeters. They think they can hold us off until reinforcements arrive." She looked up at the sky, where the warship still loomed, damaged but dangerous. It was a ticking bomb, ready to unleash more destruction if they didn't stop it. "We need to take out that ship before they can regroup." Diaz frowned. "But how? We don't have anything strong enough to pierce their shields." Maya's eyes gleamed with defiance. "We use their own weapons. They wanted to conquer us with drones? We'll use those drones to bring them down." Meanwhile, aboard the warship, Velnak paced furiously, his claws clacking against the metallic floor. "The Vindicators are ready, Commander." He turned to Threk, his eyes blazing. "Deploy them. Burn the humans out. I want their cities reduced to ashes." Threk hesitated, his voice trembling. "Commander, if we fire the Vindicators, it could destroy half the planet." Velnak's face twisted into a cruel smile. "Then we'll conquer the ashes. Deploy them now." But before the command could be executed, the ship shuddered violently. An explosion rocked the bridge, throwing officers to the floor. Velnak staggered, his claws digging into the wall for support. "Report!" he roared. Threk's eyes were wide with terror. They've breached the hangars. Our own drones. They're attacking us from within." The screens flickered, showing images of the drones tearing through corridors, detonating power conduits, and targeting weapon systems. The ship groaned as internal explosions shook its structure. Velnak watched in horror as his invincible war machine was dismantled by his own technology. He slammed his fist against the console. "How are they controlling our drones?" Threk's tentacles curled inward. "They've hacked the command codes. They've overridden our systems." Velnak's eyes flared with rage. "Then we'll destroy the ship ourselves. Prepare the self-destruct sequence. If we can't have this planet, neither will they." On the ground, Maya received the transmission from Samir. "Captain, we've infiltrated their systems. But they've triggered the self-destruct. The whole ship is going to blow." Maya's heart skipped a beat. She looked up at the warship, realizing the magnitude of the blast that was coming. It would wipe out everything for miles, including the city and everyone she was trying to protect. "How long do we have?" 5 minutes, maybe less. Maya's mind raced. There was no time to evacuate. The blast radius would be massive. But then an idea struck her. It was insane, but it was their only shot. "Samir, can you redirect the drones one last time?" His voice was hesitant. I think so. What are you planning?" Maya's face hardened. "We're going to send that bomb back to them." She turned to Diaz. Get everyone underground. Deep as they can go. It's going to get ugly. Diaz's eyes widened. You're not serious. Maya didn't flinch. We either send that ship back into space or we die here. I'm not giving them this planet. Samir's voice crackled through. I've got control. What's the target? Maya's eyes locked on the warship. They're thrusters. Turn them on full blast. If we can't stop it from exploding, we'll make sure it explodes far away from here. Samir's fingers flew over the keyboard. Done. Sending them up now. In the skies, the captured drones swarmed around the warship's thrusters, overriding safety protocols and igniting the engines. The warship shuddered, its engines roaring to life. The ground trembled as the massive ship began to lift, climbing higher and higher, its damaged hull groaning under the strain. On the bridge, Velnik's eyes widened in shock. No, what are they doing? They're sending us into space? Threk's voice was hollow. They're turning our own escape against us. The warship accelerated, ascending rapidly as its engines were pushed beyond their limits. The hull glowed as atmospheric friction heated the metal. Systems failed, consoles exploded, and the bridge was engulfed in chaos. Maya watched as the ship broke through the clouds, rising higher and higher. She held her breath, counting the seconds. Then, in a flash of blinding light, the warship detonated, a massive explosion that illuminated the sky. The shockwave rippled through the atmosphere, but the distance spared the city from total destruction. Maya felt the ground tremble, but when the light faded, the skies were clear. The warship was gone. Maya sank to her knees, exhaustion washing over her. They had done it. They had faced the deadliest species in the galaxy and survived. But she knew it wasn't over yet. The Zarkath wouldn't forgive this defeat. They would come back, and they would come back angrier. Maya stood, her eyes fixed on the sky. Let them come, she whispered. We'll be ready. Silence hung over the battlefield, a heavy stillness broken only by the distant crackle of fires and the soft murmur of survivors emerging from their hiding places. Captain Maya Lee stood amidst the ruins, her body aching, her mind racing. They had won, at least for now. The massive warship was gone, obliterated in a fiery explosion that lit up the sky like a second sun. But victory tasted bitter when surrounded by so much destruction. Sergeant Diaz approached, his face etched with fatigue. Captain, we've secured the perimeter. The remaining Zarkath soldiers are either retreating or, well, they're not a threat anymore. Maya's eyes swept over the debris-strewn streets. Buildings were reduced to skeletal frames, roads torn apart by plasma blasts, and smoke hung in the air like a mourning shroud. She felt the weight of responsibility settle heavy on her shoulders. How many did we lose? Diaz's face fell. Too many. Maya closed her eyes, swallowing the knot in her throat. They had saved the planet, but the cost had been steep. Friends, neighbors, innocents. They were all gone, sacrificed in a war they never asked for. Her fists clenched. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about justice. A shout broke her thoughts. Captain, you need to see this. She followed the soldier to the ruins of a building where a makeshift command post had been set up. Samir was hunched over a laptop, his fingers flying over the keys, eyes glued to the screen. I picked up a transmission, he said, his voice tense. It's from the Zarkath. It's not over. The screen flickered, and an image appeared. Commander Velnik's face filled the display, his crimson eyes burning with fury. He was bruised and bloodied, but his defiance was palpable. Humans, his voice hissed, dripping with contempt. You dare defy the Zarkath? You think you've won. You've only delayed the inevitable. Maya's jaw tightened. How is he alive? Samir's fingers danced over the keys. Escape pod. I'm tracking the signal. It's coming from the mountains north of here. Velnak's face twisted into a cruel smile. You are insects. Weak, fragile, insignificant. But you've shown one thing: resilience. And for that, you will suffer. The Zarkath Armada will come, and when they do, they will burn your world to ashes. The transmission cut off, leaving a chilling silence. Maya's eyes hardened. She turned to her team. We're ending this, here and now. If that monster lives, he'll call for reinforcements. We have to stop him before he can signal his fleet. Diaz nodded, his eyes cold with resolve. We'll need a strike team, fast and quiet. Maya's gaze swept over the remaining fighters, worn but unbroken. We take the fight to him. This is our world. We protect it. The team moved swiftly, gathering supplies and weapons. They were exhausted, battle-worn, but their spirits were fierce. They knew what was at stake. An hour later, they were racing through the rugged mountain terrain, moving with calculated precision. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the jagged cliffs. The escape pod's signal grew stronger as they climbed higher, weaving through boulders and shattered rock formations. Maya's heart pounded as they approached a cavern entrance. She signaled for silence, pressing herself against the rocky wall. The air was cold, thin, and filled with the faint hum of alien technology. She peered inside, spotting the metallic glint of the escape pod lodged deep within the cave. Its hatch was open, and faint lights flickered from within. She turned to Diaz and whispered, "He's here. We end this." They moved as one, slipping into the shadows, weapons at the ready. The cavern was narrow, the walls damp and cold. The hum grew louder, echoing through the winding passage. As they rounded the corner, they saw him. Commander Velnak stood in the center of the chamber, his imposing form illuminated by the glow of holographic screens. He was surrounded by alien devices, his hands moving swiftly as he transmitted data. His face was twisted with rage, his crimson eyes glowing with hatred. Maya raised her weapon, her voice firm. "It's over, Velnak. You lost." Velnak turned, his lips curling into a snarl. "Lost? You think this is over? My people will come for me, and when they do, they will erase your species from existence." Maya's eyes narrowed. "You attacked us. You killed our people. You tried to take our world. And you think we'll just let you call for help?" Velnak laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You humans are pests, scurrying in the dirt, clinging to your fragile existence. But you've proven troublesome. It's almost impressive." He took a step closer, his massive frame casting a shadow over them. "You showed resilience, intelligence, adaptability, but it won't save you. The Zarkath Armada will come, and they will burn this world to cinders." Maya's finger tightened on the trigger. "Not if you're not here to call them." Velnak's eyes flickered, his expression shifting to cold amusement. "You think you can kill me? Do you know what I am? I have conquered galaxies. I have destroyed civilizations that were far more advanced than yours." Maya stood her ground. "You made one mistake, Velnak. You thought we were weak." She fired, the shot echoing through the chamber. The plasma bolt struck Velnak's armor, sending him staggering backward. But he didn't fall. He straightened, his armor absorbing the impact, his eyes blazing with fury. He roared, lunging forward with terrifying speed. His claws sliced through the air, narrowly missing Maya as she rolled to the side. Diaz opened fire, his shots ricocheting off Velnak's armored chest. Velnak moved like a beast unleashed, his strength and speed unmatched. But Maya was fast, weaving through the cavern, using the terrain to her advantage. She fired again, aiming for the exposed joints in his armor. The bolt hit, sparks flying as Velnak howled in pain. His movements slowed, his rage intensifying. "You dare defy me?" Maya's eyes were cold, unwavering. "We don't bow, not to you, not to anyone." She aimed once more, her voice steady. "This is for Earth." The shot rang out, piercing his chest. Velnak's eyes widened, his body convulsing as he collapsed, his massive form crashing to the ground. His breathing was ragged, his strength fading. Maya stood over him, her weapon trained on his heart. "Tell your armada, humanity doesn't surrender." Velnak's eyes dimmed, his body going still. The transmission devices flickered and died, the cavern falling silent. It was over. Or so they thought. The cavern was silent, the echo of Velnak's final breath lingering in the cold air. Captain Maya Lee stood over his massive form, her weapon still trained on his lifeless body, unwilling to believe it was truly over. His crimson eyes were dim, his monstrous frame motionless. But even in death, his face was twisted with defiance. Sergeant Diaz approached cautiously, his weapon raised. "Is he dead?" Maya didn't lower her gun. "I don't take chances." She fired one more shot, straight into his chest. The bolt sizzled, leaving a smoking hole. The alien commander didn't move. Satisfied, she exhaled slowly, her shoulders relaxing. "Now he's dead." Diaz let out a breath of relief. "We did it. We actually did it." Maya looked around the cavern, at the shattered equipment and the ruined escape pod. It was over, but the battle had left its mark. "Yeah, but we've got work to do." She turned to Samir, who was already examining the alien tech. "Can you disable the rest of this? Make sure no distress signals get out?" Samir nodded, his fingers flying over the console. "Already on it, but there's something you should see." Maya joined him at the display, her eyes narrowing at the holographic map flickering before them. It showed the galaxy, dotted with red markers, thousands of them clustered around a single point. Her stomach dropped. "What is that?" Samir's voice was tight. "That's the Zarkath Armada, their main fleet." The map zoomed in, showing colossal warships, each one 10 times the size of the one they had just destroyed. Their formations were precise, disciplined, predators waiting to strike. "They're preparing for an invasion," Samir said, his face pale. "Earth wasn't the first target. It was just the closest." Maya's heart raced. "How much time do we have?" Samir shook his head. "I don't know, but they're mobilizing. If they find out what happened here, they'll come." Diaz cursed under his breath. "And we barely survived one ship." Maya's mind spun, calculating their options. Earth was vulnerable, still reeling from the first assault. They needed time to rebuild, to prepare. But if the Armada attacked now, humanity wouldn't stand a chance. She turned to Samir, her eyes blazing with determination. "Can you send a false signal? Make them think Velnak succeeded?" Samir hesitated. "You mean, trick them?" Maya nodded. "If they believe Earth's already conquered, they won't come. It'll buy us time." Samir's eyes widened. "That's risky. If they find out, they'll come at us with everything." Maya's face was hard, unyielding. "If we do nothing, they'll come anyway. This is our only shot." Samir swallowed. Then his fingers moved over the console. "I'll need to use Velnak's credentials. They're encrypted, but I think I can crack them." Maya looked at the alien commander's body, her jaw tightening. "Then get it done. We need to make them believe their greatest warrior won." The team watched as Samir worked, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the holographic screen. The alien text scrolled rapidly, and he muttered under his breath as he bypassed firewalls and security protocols. It was complex, advanced beyond anything he'd ever seen. But Samir was a genius, and he was fighting for his home. After a tense silence, he looked up, his face pale. "I'm in." Maya's heart skipped a beat. Send the message. The screen flashed as the transmission was sent. The hologram displayed the message, Velnak's voice echoing through the cavern, distorted but unmistakable. Earth is conquered, resistance, crushed, awaiting further orders. Maya's stomach turned at the sound of his voice, even though she knew it was just a mimic. It felt wrong, deceitful. But it was necessary. They were fighting for survival. The transmission ended, and the hologram shut down. Samir leaned back, exhausted. It's done. They'll think we're under Zarkath control. Maya let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Then we've bought ourselves time, but not much. Diaz looked at her, his eyes searching. What now? Maya's face hardened. We rebuild. We learn everything we can about their technology, their weaknesses. We get ready for when they come back. Diaz's jaw tightened. You think they will? Maya looked at Velnak's body, her eyes cold. They always come back. They gathered the alien tech, salvaging every piece they could carry. Weapons, communication devices, even fragments of Velnak's armor. Everything would be studied, dismantled, and turned into tools for their defense. If the Zarkath wanted war, humanity would be ready. As they exited the cavern, the first rays of dawn painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. The world was scarred, broken, but still standing. Maya looked out over the ruins of the city, her heart heavy but hopeful. We survived, she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. We beat them. Diaz stood beside her, his voice solemn. But at what cost? Maya closed her eyes, seeing the faces of those they had lost. Friends, family, innocents. The price of survival was steep, and it weighed heavily on her soul. But she couldn't afford to break. Not now. She straightened, her shoulders squared. We honor their sacrifice by fighting on, by making sure this never happens again. Diaz nodded, his respect clear. We follow you, Captain. All the way. Maya looked at her team, at the soldiers who had given everything to protect their world. They were bruised, battered, but unbroken. They were the last line of defense, humanity's hope against a galaxy of predators. She raised her weapon, her voice strong. Then let's get to work. This war isn't over. They moved out, disappearing into the rubble, preparing for the next battle. In the distance, the sun continued to rise, casting light on a world that refused to surrender. And in the cold void of space, the Zarkath Armada waited, unaware that the deadliest species in the galaxy had just met its match. Humanity. Days passed, and the world began to heal, but the scars of battle were everywhere. Streets were littered with rubble, buildings stood as hollow shells, and smoke lingered in the air like ghosts of the fallen. Yet amidst the ruins, humanity endured. People emerged from bunkers, dusting themselves off, helping one another rebuild. Hope was stubborn, refusing to die. Captain Maya Lee watched the recovery from a makeshift command post, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. She hadn't slept in days, not since they defeated Velnak and sent the false message to the Zarkath Armada. But her mind wouldn't rest. She knew this was just the beginning. Sergeant Diaz joined her, his face grim. Scouts report that the last of the Zarkath ground forces have been neutralized. We've secured the cities, but... Maya glanced at him. But? Diaz hesitated. People are scared. They know we bought time, but they also know the Zarkath will come back, stronger, angrier. Maya looked out over the survivors, faces weary yet determined. They're right to be scared. This isn't over. She turned to Diaz, her eyes hard. That's why we need to be ready. We need to turn this fear into strength. He nodded. We've salvaged a lot of alien tech. Samir's been working day and night, reverse engineering their weapons and communications. He thinks he's close to cracking their shield technology. Maya's eyes lit up. If we can figure that out, we can finally even the playing field. Diaz's expression softened. You should rest, Captain. You've been going non-stop. Maya shook her head. I'll rest when Earth is safe. They headed to the underground lab where Samir was working. It was once a metro station, now converted into a research facility. Alien devices were scattered across tables, wires running from laptops to Zarkath panels, screens flickering with alien code. Engineers moved about, their faces pale with fatigue but bright with determination. Samir was hunched over a disassembled piece of Zarkath armor, his fingers moving swiftly, eyes glued to the holographic display. He didn't look up as they approached. It's about time you showed up, Captain. Maya smiled faintly. No sleep for you either? He laughed, a hollow sound. Sleep's for when the galaxy isn't trying to kill us. She leaned over his shoulder, examining the display. What's this? Samir's eyes gleamed with excitement. The key to their shields. Their tech is complex, but it's based on an energy field generated by these crystal cores. If we can replicate the frequency, we can disrupt their shields. Maybe even use it for our own. Maya's heart raced. Can you do it? Samir's face grew serious. I think so. But we need a power source strong enough to sustain the field. Nothing we have can generate that much energy. Maya thought for a moment. Then her eyes widened. Their warship. The wreckage. There's debris scattered across the crash site. Would the reactor still be intact? Samir's face lit up. If we can salvage those, we'd have all the power we need. Maya turned to Diaz. Gather a team. We're heading to the crash site. The journey to the impact zone was grueling. The land was scorched, the earth torn apart by the force of the explosion. Massive pieces of twisted metal were scattered across the plains, remnants of the mighty Zarkath warship. It was like walking through the bones of a fallen giant. As they navigated the debris, Maya's communicator crackled. Captain, we're picking up energy readings. It's faint, but it's coming from the center of the wreckage. She nodded. That's our target. Stay alert. We don't know what's waiting for us. They moved cautiously, weapons ready, senses on high alert. The air was thick with smoke and the metallic scent of alien technology. It was eerily quiet, the only sound being the crunch of rubble beneath their boots. Then they heard it, a low hum vibrating through the air. Maya's heart skipped a beat. Weapons up! Move in! They rounded a massive piece of hull plating, and there it was, the reactor core. It was huge, twice the size of a human, encased in alien machinery that was sparking and flickering with energy. It pulsed with a faint, eerie glow, the source of the humming sound. Samir's eyes widened. It's still active, just barely. Maya approached cautiously, her weapon aimed at the reactor. Can you get it out? Samir examined the control panel, his fingers moving over the alien symbols. I think so. But we need to be careful. If this thing goes critical... Maya's jaw tightened. Then we don't get to make that mistake. As Samir began working, Diaz kept watch, his eyes scanning the wreckage. The wind howled, carrying the scent of burnt metal. Everything seemed still. Too still. Then he heard it, a metallic clank, followed by a low growl. Diaz spun around, his rifle aimed at the shadows. Captain, we've got company. Figures emerged from the rubble, their silhouettes unmistakable. Zarkath warriors, their armor scorched and battered but still deadly, their glowing red eyes locked onto the humans, their claws extending with metallic clicks. Maya's blood ran cold. Survivors, they've been waiting for us. The Zarkath leader stepped forward, his face twisted with malice. His voice was a guttural snarl. "You took our ship, killed our commander, and now you come to scavenge our technology?" Maya's eyes narrowed. "This is Earth. We take what we need to survive." The alien bared his fangs. "Then you will die like thieves." He raised his weapon, and plasma bolts shot through the air, blazing neon trails across the wreckage. Maya dove behind a chunk of hull plating, returning fire. "Samir, how much longer?" Samir's voice was strained. "Almost there. Just keep them off me." Diaz's voice was sharp. "We're pinned down. They've got the high ground." Maya's mind raced. The Zarkath were fewer in number but held the advantage of terrain and firepower. They were cornered, fighting against elite warriors who were out for blood. But Maya wasn't about to give up. Not when the fate of Earth depended on that reactor core. She shouted over the noise of battle, her voice fierce. "We've beaten them before. We do it again. Hold the line." They fought with everything they had, bullets and plasma flying through the air. Maya moved with precision, targeting weak points in the alien armor. Diaz led the charge, drawing enemy fire away from Samir. The battle raged amidst the ruins of the warship, humanity's hope clashing against the vengeance of the galaxy's deadliest species. Maya's heart pounded as she fired round after round, her spirit unbroken. They had to win. They had to survive. Because if they fell here, Earth would fall with them. The battlefield was chaos, a storm of fire and fury. Plasma bolts scorched the air, shattering metal and stone alike. The Zarkath warriors advanced with terrifying precision, their hulking frames moving through the wreckage like shadows of death. Their red eyes burned with vengeance, their weapons glowing with lethal energy. They were wounded but not broken, and they were out for blood. Captain Maya Lee gritted her teeth as she fired, her rifle's recoil jarring her shoulder. Her shots hit their marks, but the alien's armor absorbed most of the damage. They were relentless, moving in coordinated formation, pressing the attack. She ducked behind a twisted piece of hull plating, breathing hard. "Samir, how much longer?" Samir's voice crackled through the communicator, frantic but focused. "Almost done. Just need to stabilize the core, otherwise we'll all be dust." Sergeant Diaz was crouched beside her, his face smeared with dirt and sweat. "We're running out of time, Captain. They're closing in." Maya's eyes narrowed. They were pinned down, and the Zarkath were pressing the advantage, using their superior firepower and armor. But they weren't invincible. She had seen them fall before. They bled just like anyone else. Her gaze shifted to the surrounding wreckage, to the jagged metal and debris. An idea sparked. "We need to trap them. Use the terrain against them." Diaz's eyes widened. "An ambush?" Maya nodded, her mind racing. "We can't take them head-on, but we can outsmart them." She pointed to a narrow pass between two massive slabs of broken hull. "Draw them in there. They'll be bottlenecked, no room to maneuver. We'll hit them hard, all at once." Diaz's grin was fierce. "I like it." Maya's voice was sharp, commanding. "Everyone, fall back. Lead them through the pass. Set charges along the walls. We're bringing this whole thing down on them." Her soldiers moved swiftly, ducking and weaving through the rubble, laying explosives along the narrow passage. The Zarkath followed, just as she predicted, their towering forms moving with mechanical precision. They were confident, certain of their superiority. Maya watched from her position, her finger hovering over the detonator. "Come on, just a little closer." The Zarkath leader marched at the front, his armor gleaming with scorch marks, his red eyes locked on the fleeing humans. His voice boomed, filled with contempt. "Run, insects! There is no escape!" Maya's lips curled into a cold smile. "We're not running." She pressed the button. The explosives detonated with a deafening roar, the ground shaking beneath their feet. The hull slabs shuddered, then collapsed inward, crashing down on the Zarkath warriors. Dust and debris filled the air, and the screams of the trapped invaders echoed through the ruins. When the dust settled, the passage was blocked by tons of metal and stone, sealing the Zarkath beneath. Maya stood, her eyes blazing. "Check for survivors. Make sure none get through." Her team moved swiftly, weapons ready. They heard muffled growls and metallic scratching from beneath the rubble, but nothing broke through. The trap had worked. They had turned the terrain into their weapon, just as the Zarkath had once done to countless civilizations. Diaz approached, his face a mixture of awe and relief. "You did it. You brought them down." Maya's face was hard. "They underestimated us. Thought we were weak because we didn't have their technology." Her eyes were fierce. "But humans are survivors. We adapt. We fight back." Her communicator buzzed. "Captain, I've stabilized the reactor. We've got the power source. We can make the shield disruptor work." Maya's heart raced. "Good. Get it back to the lab. We're not giving them another chance." They moved quickly, carrying the reactor core through the wreckage, weaving through the shattered landscape. The sky was darkening, and the air was thick with the scent of smoke and metal. But as they reached the edge of the crash site, a low hum vibrated through the air. Maya froze, her blood running cold. She knew that sound. Diaz looked up, his face paling. "No, it can't be." Above them, the clouds parted, revealing the silhouette of another warship, descending through the atmosphere. Its hull was sleek, shimmering with alien energy, and its cannons glowed with ominous light. It was smaller than Velnak's ship, but just as deadly. Maya's jaw tightened. "Reinforcements. They must have tracked the signal." The warship hovered ominously, its lights scanning the crash site, searching for survivors. Maya's heart pounded. They were exposed, carrying a volatile reactor, with no cover and no heavy weapons. Samir's voice crackled through the comm. "Captain, if they see us, we're dead." Maya's mind raced. They couldn't fight that ship, not out in the open. But they could hide. She looked at the nearby wreckage, at the hollow shell of the warship's engine chamber. "Get to the chamber. Shield the reactor with the debris. We wait until they pass." They moved swiftly, slipping into the ruins, pressing themselves against the cold metal walls. The warship's lights swept across the ground, illuminating the shattered landscape. Maya held her breath, her heart hammering in her chest. One wrong move, and they'd be vaporized. The lights lingered, then moved on. The warship hovered for a moment longer, then ascended, disappearing into the clouds. Maya exhaled, her body sagging with relief. They had escaped, but it was only a matter of time before the Zarkath realized the truth. The Armada would come, and when they did, Earth would face extinction. She looked at the reactor core, pulsing with energy, the key to their survival. If they could master the shield technology, they'd have a chance, but only if they acted fast. Maya stood, her eyes blazing with determination. "We need to get this back to base. We've got a planet to defend." Diaz's face was set with resolve. "Then let's move. No rest for the wicked." They moved through the shadows, the reactor humming softly, a beacon of hope amidst the ruins. They had survived the deadliest species in the galaxy once. They would do it again. Because humanity didn't just fight to survive, they fought to win. Under the cloak of night, Captain Maya Lee led her team through the desolate wasteland, the reactor core humming softly as they moved. It was heavy, unstable, and dangerously volatile, but it was their only hope. If they could harness its power, they could replicate the Zarkath's shield technology, and if they could do that, they'd stand a chance against the coming invasion. Sergeant Diaz moved beside her, his weapon ready, eyes scanning the shadows. The air was cold, sharp with the metallic scent of debris and smoke. The warship had passed, but Maya knew better than to assume they were safe. The Zarkath were relentless hunters. They wouldn't leave until they were certain Earth was conquered. Samir struggled under the weight of the reactor, his face pale with exhaustion. "Captain, we need to rest. This thing's heavier than it looks." Maya glanced back, her eyes softening. They were all exhausted. They'd been fighting for days, running on adrenaline and determination. But rest was a luxury they couldn't afford. Not yet. "We keep moving until we reach the safe zone, then we rest." Diaz's face was grim. "If there is a safe zone left." Maya's jaw tightened. She knew what he meant. Earth was in ruins, cities reduced to rubble, civilization shattered. The survivors were scattered, hiding in the shadows, clinging to hope. But they were alive. As long as they were alive, they could fight. And as long as they fought, Earth wasn't lost. They moved through the broken landscape, weaving between the twisted metal and shattered stone. The sky was dark, clouds swirling ominously. Maya's senses were on high alert, every shadow a potential threat. Then she heard it, a faint metallic clinking sound. Her hand shot up, signaling for silence. Her team froze, weapons raised, eyes wide with fear. They knew that sound. Diaz's voice was a whisper. "Drones! They're hunting us." Maya's heart raced. The Zarkath scouting drones were lethal, armed with plasma cannons and tracking systems that could detect a heartbeat from a mile away. They had to hide, and fast. She pointed to a collapsed overpass, its shadow long and deep. "There, move!" They ran, ducking under the rubble, pressing themselves against the cold stone. The hum grew louder, the drones moving in formation, their silver bodies gleaming in the moonlight. Maya held her breath, her body still as stone. If they were detected, they wouldn't survive. Not out in the open like this. The drones hovered above them, their sensors glowing, scanning the ground. One of them paused, its light sweeping dangerously close to their hiding spot. Maya's heart stopped. She gripped her rifle, ready to fight, knowing it would be a losing battle. Then the drone moved on, its light fading as it continued its patrol. Maya exhaled, her shoulders sagging with relief. But her respite was short-lived. They needed to keep moving. The drones would be back. She whispered into her communicator. "Samir, can you jam their signals?" Samir's fingers flew over his handheld device, his face illuminated by the blue glow. "I can try, but it'll only buy us a few minutes. They'll adapt." Maya's eyes hardened. "A few minutes is all we need. Do it." The device buzzed softly, emitting a pulse of energy. The drones above shuddered, their lights flickering before they veered off course. Their sensors scrambled. Maya didn't wait to see if it would last. "Move out, now!" They bolted from their hiding place, moving swiftly through the ruins, the reactor core slowing them down. The landscape was jagged, a labyrinth of shattered buildings and scorched earth. Every step was treacherous, but they didn't stop. They reached the edge of the city, where the ruins gave way to open plains. In the distance, Maya saw the silhouette of their safe zone, a fortified bunker hidden beneath a hill, camouflaged from enemy scans. They were close, just a little further. Then the ground exploded. Maya was thrown off her feet, landing hard against a slab of concrete. Her vision blurred, her ears ringing. She tasted blood. When she looked up, she saw the Zarkath soldiers emerging from the shadows, their weapons glowing ominously. They had been waiting. Diaz was on his feet, firing his rifle, his voice echoing through the chaos. "Ambush! They knew we'd come this way." The aliens moved with terrifying precision, their red eyes gleaming, their armor reflecting the moonlight. Plasma bolts scorched the ground, slicing through stone and metal alike. Maya fired back, aiming for the joints in their armor. She hit one, the creature roaring as it fell, sparks flying from its body. But there were too many. Samir was pinned behind a piece of rubble, the reactor core exposed beside him. His face was pale, eyes wide with fear. "Captain, if they hit the reactor—" Maya's blood ran cold. If the reactor was damaged, it would explode, taking them all with it. She shouted over the noise, her voice fierce. "Protect the core, whatever it takes." They fought with everything they had, bullets and plasma lighting up the night. The Zarkath were relentless, closing in with lethal efficiency. But Maya's team held their ground, refusing to surrender. Diaz moved in front of the reactor, his body shielding it from enemy fire. He shouted to Maya, his voice strained. "Go! Get the core to the bunker! We'll hold them off!" Maya's heart twisted. She knew what he was saying. He was volunteering to stay behind, to buy them time. She wanted to argue, but she saw the resolve in his eyes. He knew what was at stake. She nodded, her voice tight. "Hold the line. Don't let them through." Diaz's face softened. "Go save our world, Captain. We've got this." Maya grabbed Samir, helping him lift the reactor core. It was heavy, unstable, but they moved with purpose, pushing through the pain. Plasma bolts whizzed past them, the air scorching hot. She didn't look back. If she did, she'd break. They ran towards the bunker, the entrance hidden beneath a rocky outcrop. Maya punched in the access code, the metal door sliding open with a hiss. She and Samir stumbled inside, the core humming ominously. But just as the door closed, she heard Diaz's voice over the communicator, broken and defiant. "You picked the wrong planet, you ugly bastards." Then, an explosion shook the earth, the shockwave rippling through the bunker walls. Maya's knees buckled, tears burning in her eyes. She knew what it meant. Diaz had kept his word. He had held the line. She looked at the reactor core, its glow steady, a beacon of hope. They had what they needed to fight back. But the cost had been high. Maya's face hardened, her sorrow turning to fury. The Zarkath wanted a war? She'd give them one, because humanity didn't just survive, they avenged. The bunker walls trembled as the shockwave passed, dust falling from the ceiling. Captain Maya Lee leaned against the cold metal, her chest heaving, heart pounding with grief and rage. Diaz was gone. He had sacrificed himself to protect the reactor core, to give humanity a fighting chance. She couldn't let his death be in vain. Samir slumped against the reactor, his face pale, eyes hollow. He didn't make it, did he?" Maya's voice was tight, her throat aching. But he bought us time. We can't waste it." She turned to the reactor, its eerie glow casting shadows on the walls. "Can you get it working?" Samir wiped his face, forcing himself to focus. Yeah, I can do it. But it's risky. This thing's more powerful than anything we've ever seen. If it overloads—" Maya's jaw clenched. "We don't have a choice. We need that shield disruptor working, or we're dead." Samir nodded, his fingers trembling as he began connecting wires, his laptop humming as alien code scrolled across the screen. He was exhausted, his body bruised, but his mind was sharp. He worked with a desperation born of survival. Maya moved to the bunker's control room, activating the surveillance monitors. The screens flickered to life, showing the battlefield outside. The ground was scorched, littered with debris and bodies. She saw the smoldering crater where Diaz had made his last stand. Her heart twisted, but she forced herself to look away. There was no time to mourn. Her eyes narrowed as the cameras zoomed in on the Zarkath soldiers regrouping. They were injured but still moving, their red eyes glowing with fury. They were relentless, hunting for survivors, scouring the ruins with mechanical precision. One of them paused, its head turning towards the bunker entrance. Maya's blood ran cold. They knew where she was. They were coming. She activated the bunker's defense systems, the turrets humming as they powered up. But she knew they wouldn't hold. The Zarkath had breached stronger defenses before. If Samir didn't get the shield disruptor working in time, they were finished. The communicator buzzed. Samir's voice was strained, panicked. "Captain, we've got a problem!" Maya raced back to the lab, her heart pounding. Samir was crouched over the reactor, his face illuminated by the pulsing glow. Sparks flew from the wires, the air crackling with energy. "The power levels are spiking. It's unstable. If we push it too far..." Maya's eyes hardened. "What happens?" Samir's face was grim. "It'll explode, and take half the continent with it." Maya's breath caught. She looked at the reactor, its glow intensifying, the hum growing louder. It was a bomb waiting to go off. But if they didn't use it, the Zarkath would wipe out humanity. They were out of options. She made her decision. "Do it. Get the shield disruptor online. If this thing blows, then we take them with us." Samir's eyes widened. "You're serious?" Maya's face was cold, unyielding. "We're not letting them take Earth, whatever it costs." Samir swallowed. Then his shoulders straightened. "All right, but we'll need to amplify the signal. The disruptor has to reach their warships in orbit." Maya's mind raced. "The comm tower. It's the tallest structure still standing. We can transmit from there." Samir hesitated. "It's outside the bunker." Exposed, Maya's eyes gleamed with defiance. "Then we fight our way through." They moved swiftly, gathering weapons and equipment. Maya strapped the shield disruptor to her back, its weight heavy but reassuring. It was their last hope. The bunker door creaked as it opened, the cold night air rushing in. Maya raised her rifle, eyes scanning the ruins. The landscape was desolate, shadows dancing under the moonlight. The comm tower loomed in the distance, skeletal but intact. They moved through the rubble, sticking to the shadows, avoiding the patrols. The Zarkath were searching methodically, their red eyes glowing in the darkness. Maya's heart raced, but her footsteps were silent, her movements precise. She was a hunter in her own land, fighting to protect her home. They reached the base of the tower without being seen. Samir began setting up the transmitter, his fingers flying over the controls. "Give me a minute. I need to sync the disruptor's signal with the tower's frequency." Maya stood guard, her weapon ready. The air was tense, every sound amplified by the silence. Then she heard it, a low growl, metallic and menacing. She turned, her heart sinking. Zarkath soldiers emerged from the shadows, their weapons aimed, their red eyes locked on her. They moved with terrifying precision, surrounding the tower. The leader stepped forward, his armor scarred but intact. His voice was a cold hiss. "You cannot win, human. Surrender and your death will be swift." Maya's face was fierce, her eyes blazing. "This is our planet, and we're not surrendering to anyone." The leader's face twisted into a snarl. "Then you will die." He raised his weapon, plasma glowing ominously. Maya fired first, her shots striking his armor, sending him staggering. The other soldiers opened fire, plasma bolts scorching the air. Maya ducked behind a pillar, returning fire, her movements quick and precise. Samir's voice was frantic. "I need more time!" Maya shouted over the noise, her voice fierce. "Then buy it!" She moved swiftly, weaving through the ruins, drawing enemy fire away from Samir. Her shots were calculated, targeting weak points in the Zarkath armor. One fell, then another, but they kept coming, relentless and unyielding. The leader roared, charging at her with terrifying speed. Maya rolled to the side, firing at his exposed joints. Sparks flew as his armor cracked, but he didn't fall. He swung his claws, narrowly missing her head. She fired again, her shots piercing his chest. The alien staggered, his red eyes flickering before he collapsed. Maya's body ached, her breath ragged, but she didn't stop. She stood over the fallen leader, her voice cold. "You came to our world, but you'll never leave it." Samir's shout broke through the chaos. "It's ready, transmitting now." The disruptor hummed, its energy surging through the tower, pulsing into the sky. The air crackled, vibrating with power. In the distance, the Zarkath warships shimmered, their shields flickering before collapsing. Maya's heart raced. It was working. They had a chance. But then the disruptor began to spark, the hum growing unstable. Samir's face went pale. "The reactor's overloading. It's going to blow." Maya's blood ran cold. There was no time to disarm it, no time to run. She looked at Samir, her voice steady. "Get to safety. I'll finish this." Samir's eyes widened. "But go." She stood before the reactor, the disruptor's energy surging. She had one shot, one chance to save humanity. She placed her hand on the controls, her voice firm. "Earth isn't yours to take." And she activated the overload. The world erupted in light. Blinding, searing light that consumed everything around her. Captain Maya Lee felt the raw power of the reactor surge through her body, electricity crackling through the air. Time seemed to slow, her senses overwhelmed by the blinding brilliance and deafening roar. It was like standing at the heart of a star, the energy vibrating through her bones. But amidst the chaos, Maya stood firm. Her fingers gripped the controls, her jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the sky. She could see the Zarkath warships hovering above, their shields flickering, weakening. This was her moment. She was humanity's last line of defense. The disruptor's pulse surged through the comm tower, amplifying the signal, sending waves of energy into the atmosphere. The sky shimmered, glowing with alien light as the pulse hit the warships. Their shields buckled, then shattered, the protective fields disintegrating like glass. Maya's heart raced. It was working. The invincible Zarkath armada was vulnerable, exposed. She watched as the warships trembled, their metallic hulls cracking under the pressure. Fires erupted from within, explosions rippling through the fleet. One by one, the ships faltered, engines failing, lights flickering as they plummeted towards Earth. She heard their screams through the comms, guttural roars of fury and fear as the mighty conquerors fell from the sky. It was a sound she would never forget, a sound of victory. But victory came at a price. The reactor was overloading, its glow intensifying, sparks flying from the disruptor. Maya felt the heat rising, the air vibrating with raw energy. She knew she was out of time. Samir's voice crackled through her earpiece, panicked and broken. "Captain, get out of there! It's going to explode!" Maya's eyes softened, a sad smile crossing her lips. "Not this time, Samir." She looked at the sky, at the falling warships, at the stars beyond. She thought of Diaz, of the people they'd lost, of Earth burning under alien fire. She thought of humanity, broken, battered, but never defeated. They were survivors. They always had been. She took a deep breath, her voice steady. Tell them we fought. Tell them we won." Then she pressed the final command, her fingers trembling. The reactor surged, its energy collapsing inward. The light grew blinding, the noise deafening. Maya felt herself being pulled apart, her body disintegrating in the wave of power. And then, nothing. The explosion was massive, a burst of light that shot into the sky, piercing the clouds, reaching into space. It was a beacon of defiance, a human light that burned through the darkness. The shockwave rippled through the land, flattening ruins, shattering stone. But the comm tower stood firm, its structure glowing as the energy surged through it, amplifying the disruptor's signal one last time. The Zarkath warships were hit by the pulse, their systems frying, circuitry shorting. They spiraled out of control, crashing into each other, plummeting towards the Earth. The ground shook as the ships exploded, the sky ablaze with fire and metal. Samir watched from the bunker, tears streaming down his face. He saw the light, felt the Earth tremble, heard the roar of destruction. He knew what it meant. He knew who was gone. The warships fell, their burning wreckage lighting up the night. The Zarkath were defeated, their armada lay shattered, their conqueror's legacy erased. Earth was safe. But Maya was gone. Samir dropped to his knees, his body shaking. He remembered her last words, the way her voice had softened, the strength in her eyes. He remembered her sacrifice, the way she had stood against the galaxy's deadliest species and fought for her home. He remembered, and he wept. Days passed, and the world began to heal. Survivors emerged from the rubble, helping each other rebuild. They gathered around the comm tower, now a monument standing amidst the ruins, its structure scarred but unbroken. It was a symbol of defiance, of victory, of hope. The people mourned their fallen, but they remembered their courage. They rebuilt their homes, their cities, their world, and they honored the one who had given everything to save them. A statue was erected at the base of the comm tower, crafted from the wreckage of the Zarkath warship. It was of Captain Maya Lee, standing tall, her weapon at her side, her face fierce and unyielding. Beneath her, an inscription read, "She fought for Earth. She won for humanity." Samir stood before the statue, his heart heavy, his eyes burning. He placed his hand on the cold metal, his voice breaking. "We did it, Captain. We're safe. Because of you." He looked up at the sky, at the stars beyond. He knew they were out there, the Zarkath, waiting, watching. They would come back. They would seek revenge. But Earth would be ready. Maya had given them the time they needed. Her sacrifice had given them the shield disruptor, the weapon that would protect their world. They would study it, master it, use it to defend humanity. Because Earth wasn't just a planet. It was home. And humans didn't surrender. Samir straightened, his face hardening, his grief turning to resolve. He walked away from the statue, his footsteps firm, his heart burning with purpose. He would honor her memory, her sacrifice. He would fight, just as she had, because humanity wasn't weak. They weren't prey. They were survivors. They were warriors. They were the deadliest species in the galaxy, and they weren't going anywhere.